Good afternoon. I'm Karen Tolley, the Robert J. Vlasic Dean of Engineering. Welcome to our fireside chat with OpenAI CEO Sam Altman. Presented to you today by the College of Engineering in collaboration with our colleagues from across the campus. I'm grateful to all of you because you've taken the time to join us here for this opportunity to have this really important discussion with a pioneer in the field. Students, thank you so much for taking your time to engage. As someone new to campus, it is wonderful to see such a tremendous response from our community, including representatives from the Board of Regents, university executive officers, and other leaders from across campus. Generative AI is transforming how we work, how we learn, how we teach, and it's a very popular topic. The number of requests for this event was overwhelming, and you, students, all submitted more than 500 questions for our guest of honor today. Okay, it's gonna be a long night. No, just kidding. We're not going to be able to cover all of those questions today, but the university's Senior Managing Director of Investments, Dan Fader, and OpenAI's Sam Altman will discuss a wide range of questions motivated by what you submitted. To ensure an enjoyable experience for all, we ask that you please refrain from personally recording or photographing today's event. We will share a recording of the event next week. Thank you for your cooperation. Now, I'm pleased to introduce the chair of the University of Michigan Board of Regents, Kathy White, who will introduce our speakers. Regent White.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for the kind introduction, Dean Tolley. I'm excited to introduce today's distinguished guest, Sam Altman, a leader in technology, innovation, and education. As CEO of OpenAI, Sam Altman drives a groundbreaking organization in artificial intelligence. His leadership has expanded AI's capabilities from natural language processing to reinforcement learning. OpenAI's work sets the stage for AI to enhance human intelligence in many ways that are new. Sam combines technical expertise with a deep passion for innovation in education. As president of Y Combinator, he mentored thousands of entrepreneurs who created technologies that shape our daily lives. His approach to teaching emphasizes real-world application, hands-on learning, and cultivating a growth mindset. Today's program will be moderated by Dan Fader, Senior Managing Director of Investments for the university's endowment. He leads the university's investments in venture capital and private equity, which also includes actively seeking out opportunities for collaborations between the university's investment program and the broader university community. Together, they will discuss how technology will shape the future of education. Sam will explain how AI and machine learning can personalize learning, boost outcomes, and broaden access to knowledge worldwide. His insights will challenge us to rethink traditional education and use technology to prepare students for the complex challenges of the future. So please join me in welcoming a visionary leader transforming technology and education, Sam Altman.
Okay. Welcome to Ann Arbor.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. This is Sam Altman. Just, just we've known each other for, I was looking back, about 10 years now. And it's just been a real treat to
It's been awesome.
to be around you and to see the work you've done over this time. Before we get going, I just want to say thank you to your team, especially Teresa Lopez, for making this happen. There's a lot that goes into this, and your team is fantastic. And then here at the university, Mike Drake and Emily Dickman from engineering and Ali Levine from the investments office, along with a bunch of other people, did a lot to make today happen. So I love my job. And,
Me too.
Yeah.
Up and down, but mostly
yeah,
yes.
A couple of the reasons why I love my job is that a part of my job is to just meet with exceptional people and try to find ways to collaborate and to see where it goes, basically. And the other part of why I love my job is exactly this, which is to find ways to bring those people to the university and see if there are things that can come back the other direction and keep going. We have a ton to talk about. One of the things that I know about our conversations is we cover a lot of material in a very short period of time, so I have a lot of pages.
We'll get through
We
it.
might get through all of them. But you kind of messed up this plan a little bit. And I had a speed round at the end, and I'm just going to do one of the speed round questions right now. And I just want to ask you, what's your favorite fruit?
I actually don't even like strawberries,
Okay.
but I do today. Favorite fruit? Pineapple's pretty good.
All right.
Yeah, I think pineapple.
Comes from Hawaii, I
Yeah, I
guess. So for those who don't know or haven't read
We
the
launched
newspaper
strawberry.
today-
We had launched O1, which we called strawberry for the last 2 years. We're very excited.
Well, what is it?
When we finished GPT-4, one of the things we were most excited about is can we use this thing that we've created, and on top of it, can we teach models to reason? And we thought that if we could do that, it would be a very significant step forward. And in some sense was the next most important, most obvious, whatever you want to call it, missing piece. So we got to work on that. It was an idea that many different teams at OpenAI were working on in different ways. And we tried some things, and some worked, most didn't, but we put more and more effort around the things that worked. And the model that we launched today is, I think, the first model that I would say is, it's still very early, but the first model that is a true general purpose complex reasoner. We have this idea that there are these 5 levels of AI that we plan to work on. The first one, where we've been for the last few years, is these sort of chat-based models. And level 2, which is about reasoning, I think this is the first time we've gotten there. It'll get rapidly better from here, but even this one is pretty good.
So does this put us on the path to generalized intelligence or superhuman intelligence? Where does this land us?
I think we are on that path. We've been on that path for a long time. This is the next step on that path. But I think it's all one long exponential curve that we are very fortunate to get to live and witness. This is an exciting time.
Cool. It's a big day.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here
No,
for this.
I think we're all tired and exhausted, but these paradigm shifts don't come along that many times. The GPT-4 was one, and this is one, and it's special.
So a thing I'm curious about is that when GPT-2 came out, it really caught fire quickly. And I think it maybe caught you a little bit by surprise at what the uptake was.
Until you never know, looking forward, when the thing that kind of catches fire is going to be, and why it was the ChatGPT moment, and not, that was with when it launched, it was with GPT 3.5, but why it wasn't quite GPT 3 or GPT 4, that was sort of hard to predict. We knew it would happen at some point, but we were caught off guard the particular time it did happen.
So I'm just trying to connect a couple dots here in terms of where we are with this launch, and we'll see where it goes. And you know that it's a big deal, or you
Yeah.
believe it's a big deal. But in looking back, and I've heard this from a number of people, a comment is, well, how could you not have known that 2 was a big deal? It's magic. And so is there something about when you're doing work on something that you're focused on kind of metrics and development that takes you away from seeing the impact?
So, I think when we put out GPT-3, the kind of tech community cared about it, but most of the rest of the world didn't. And I was a little confused about that because I thought it should have gotten more attention than it did. And then by the time we put out ChatGPT with 3.5 November 30th of 2022, and we had finished training GPT-4 August 2nd, I believe, of 2022. And we've been using it internally. So we'd had months of getting used to GPT-4, which we all thought was really good. And GPT 3.5 was like very old news to us. And so I think we were miscalibrated on how much of an update it was going to be over GPT-3 for people who hadn't gotten to use GPT-4. And so I think that's maybe why we were surprised. But again, this is it's hard to predict when things catch fire. I think you could also say why weren't people more excited about GPT-3?
Yeah. And then just sort of bouncing back to Strawberry, what are the specific things that you see that can be done with this that are maybe most notable or most important in your mind?
Any of you take the AIME math competition? It got a 93%. I retook one for fun this year. I hadn't done it since high school.
Right.
It's pretty hard. I certainly didn't get a 93. I think there's you can point to metrics like that. For programming, the utility it'll bring to people to help them write software is going to, I think, be astonishing. I think a lot of researchers in many different fields will be able to use this to enhance their research. And also, as always happens, people will find new ways to use this we never dreamed of.
Yeah. And in terms of what can be done with the state of the art prior to today?
It's super different. Look, we numbered this 1 because it is a very early thing. So rather, we had thought at one point about, it doesn't fit perfectly, but maybe we'll call this GPT-5 or whatever. But this is a new paradigm. It's a different way to use a model. It's good at different things. It takes a long time for hard problems, which is annoying, but we'll make that better. But it can do things that the GPT series just didn't, and it struggles with a lot of things too. So it'll take some time to adapt to, but just when we were standing backstage, I was looking at what people were saying about it online, and it's amazing to watch people who have not been staring at this every day for the last year, find out, look at it with fresh eyes and be like, wow, this thing wrote this incredibly complex piece of code, or it helped me reason through this problem I've been stuck on. So I think we'll see a lot in the next few weeks of how people adapt and begin to use this, but I think these models have been so impressive in some ways that we've overlooked how bad they've been at reasoning, and now this is a real phase change in that sense.
Yes, I was trying to get at a little bit, which is when we look at what is being used now in terms of trying to get maybe to this kind of output with, whether it's recursive self-improvement or open-endedness or agentic AI, as ways of kind of getting there. Is this override, or what's the interplay?
I think this does start to enable agents. I think one of the things that have been blocking agents is just a system that had enough reasoning capability and was robust enough that you could do these long horizon tasks with enough confidence or rigor. I think we're still a ways away from a self-improvement loop. And when we get closer to that, we'll have to be very careful. But I do think the agent's vision is now it's not like a next month kind of thing, but it's within grasp.
Yeah. What does this mean for reinforcement learning and human input? So RHLF, where that has been an important tool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, O1 really is all about reinforcement learning. That is the secret here, and we've done smaller versions of that in the past. RLHF is a great example, but this is the dream of RLL language models finally. And it really works.
Okay. Maybe we could just go back a little bit. What does AGI mean? Or what does it mean to you?
Whatever is like 2 years away or 5 years away or like whatever is coming in the future. I think the term has become essentially meaningless because people have such a huge variety of things that they mean for it. Like some people call GPT-4 AGI, which I think it's definitely not. Some people talk about this vague thing and they're not sure what it is, but they think it'll come in some set number of years, always the same number in the future. And some people mean that it's like the legitimate recursively self-improving superintelligence. I would love to banish the word because I think it's become so overloaded with different meanings. One of the reasons we like this levels framework is you can at least then like kind of agree on what the milestones are and talk about something with a little more rigor. I think if you could go back in time, not even very long, if you could go back in time like 5 years and show someone O1, they would be absolutely astonished. Most people, they would say, there's no way that AI is going to do this in 2024. And I think if you could fast forward another 5 years and we could show you what will happen in 2029, most people would say, absolutely not, there's no way. We can't keep going like this. And I think the important thing is not a definition of AGI or arguing about when it's going to come, but it is that we are on this exponential curve, and every year from 2019 to a long time in the future is going to look like just breathtaking forward progress.
Yeah. Well, I won't call it AGI.
Call it whatever you want.
I'll use AGI for today, and then we'll stop. But in following your comments or your thinking, at some point you thought, well, it could be an event, whatever the it is.
Yeah.
And you've moved to, in this description, as an evolutionary process towards something that is defined by kind of functionality in important ways like reasoning and ability to take steps and so forth. Is it still possible that there could be an event? And so the thing that I keep stumbling on or coming to is this concept of abstraction. So LLMs are based on language, which are abstractions of something, the real world. And a way of thinking of AGI, I think, could be, well, if you're able to do this magic without having it work on an abstraction, but do the abstraction itself, is there something that you could envision where you'd say, this could be an event?
Yeah, I think there will be these sort of mile markers, but I somehow think it will feel, for the definition of continuous that isn't exponential, I think it'll somehow feel continuous.
Yeah.
It's very hard to say because it does feel like when the system can do better AI research than like all of OpenAI put together, that should be some sort of discontinuity. But things on log scales or exponential scales, whatever you want, like it's just strange.
Yeah. So along this path, what would be, do you think, the first Nobel Prize awarded that was based on something generated by an AI?
Great question. No really strong opinion. I would bet it's like a physics discovery, but low confidence.
Yeah. Could be a Peace Prize.
Less confidence.
Less confidence.
It'd be great.
We can hope. So maybe that's a good segue into maybe pulling way back. I'd really be interested in your thoughts on, as we look at technological developments and their role in society and what it means, what does it mean to be optimistic? What does that mean to you?
I don't know how we could sit at this present moment and not be optimistic. I think we are living through probably the most exciting piece of the technological revolution in human history. What people are going to be capable of in the very not distant future, or already are capable of today, literally today. I think how different the world is today than yesterday. People are going to create things that astonish us. You all are going to create things that astonish us. And sort of the story of human history is that we build better tools and then people do even more amazing stuff with them, and they themselves add their layer of scaffolding with whatever tools, and we're just on this steadily increasing curve of possibility. These platform shifts come along once in a while, and it's sort of like punctuated equilibria, but this is going to be a big punctuation mark. And the kind of openness of the playing field right now, the possibility that we can create just much better things for each other. Education, healthcare, science, all of these are going to accelerate have better offerings in such dramatic ways so quickly that I don't know what it would mean to be pessimistic right now. This is a time of what feels like infinite possibility. And it hasn't felt like that, I think, at least in the tech industry more recently. There was kind of a sense of stagnation for a while. And I think this is something on the order of the discovery of electricity or the transistor or something like that.
So in getting ready for today, I went back and watched some older videos or interviews that you did. You did one last year with Patrick Collison, co-founder of Stripe. And one of the things you expressed frustration in was that there is a dearth now of really great and influential 20-year-old founders. And is this the unlock that now we'll start seeing the 20-something-year-old super founders?
I think so. I think young people in general have the biggest relative edge during one of these tectonic plate movements of an industry, or of the tech industry in particular. And certainly watching the people, it's sort of a strange feeling to watch someone who feels like they're better at using ChatGPT than me, because I'm supposed to be pretty good at that. But when I come visit a college or something, the 20-year-olds are definitely better at using ChatGPT than me. And I think that's going to turn out to be a huge advantage. And this should be a time where the 20-year-old founders kind of get their revenge over the last decade.
Right. I didn't know they were.
I think it's great.
I didn't know they were looking for revenge.
Well, I just think it's been a sad, I was a 20-year-old founder. I was very grateful for the experience. It was a lot of fun. And it has just been much less of that, I think, as the tech industry has ossified somewhat in the intervening time. And now I think the pendulum will swing back.
Just sticking on the topic of people and getting people to do highly ambitious projects, or encouraging or facilitating highly ambitious projects. How does that work? So you led Y Combinator, which is the world's best, foremost incubator, not incubator, but assistant to creating great companies.
Yeah.
But these really big ideas and these transformative technologies don't come along on a schedule. And how do you think about what should be done, whether it's at a university or in a company or in venture, to, I don't know if it's stockpiling people, granting young people tenure before, preeminent,
that idea.
Or something, so that these exceptional people have an opportunity to do these great things, not on a timeline.
First of all, I think people should do whatever they want. And if you want to work on things that you can build in a weekend and that makes you happy and fulfilled, that's great, that's fine. But if you want to work on a really long-term project, I think you should at least be able to do that. And that's been a lot harder to do and to get funded in the kind of Silicon Valley of the last decade, let's say. I think that's finally really changing. And my advice is it is easier to do a hard thing than it is to do an easy thing in the world of like startups, research projects, whatever. The thing that eventually matters is if you're going to do something that like it's going to take a long time. It's can you get enough really talented people together and excited and like committed to work super hard and kind of push in the same direction. And if you're trying to like create AGI, that's like an interesting mission. If you're trying to like make fusion, that's an interesting mission. If you're trying to do, you know, the like 2000th copy of the same idea, that's like less exciting. And so I think it's worth keeping in mind that although the activation energy is maybe slightly harder to go after something really ambitious, doing a startup is going to be super hard and miserable no matter what. And you may as well take the tailwind of the kind of quest that people want to join and work on for a long time.
And it can be lonely, right? Because as you said, the things you said are most worthwhile to work on are things that are a good idea, but look like a bad idea.
You have to be...
By others.
Yeah, you have to, it's not lonely, or at least it wasn't for us in the traditional sense, because everybody that was in OpenAI. So from like 2016 to 2020, like basically no one who didn't work at OpenAI cared. Like, you know, we would like release a little research project here and there, but not a big deal. From 2020 to near the end of 2022, like some people cared in the tech industry, but not that many. And then in the end of 2022, when we released ChatGPT, everybody cared. But for those first 4 years when no one cared, we all just felt like we were the sane ones and the rest of the world was crazy. But we had very high conviction that we knew something really important. And it was like strange to us that other people didn't get it or didn't care, but didn't feel lonely. In fact, it felt like exciting because we were like on this quest of discovery. And I remember thinking that it was like weird that people didn't seem to get it, but fully unbothered by it. And I think we would all say like, well, we're clearly right.
Yeah. I don't want to spend too much time on this next topic because you said too many people tweet about it and not enough people do work on it, which is around safety. I'm more reminded of an Elvis Presley line from 1968. Not that I knew the song when it came out, but it was just a little less conversation, a little more action, please. But without going into the sort of the philosophical piece around safety, a thing that is also hard about what you've done with OpenAI, and I think with other projects as well, and this relates to regulation or governance by governing bodies, is that I think you said a research organization might do too little, a private enterprise might do too much, and the government might do too little and then too much. But they all, sort of exist in parallel. How are you continuing to get your head around that?
I think we've done great technical work on safety so far. There's a lot more in front of us, and the shape of it is evolving. As we think about safety in a world of AI agents and what it's going to mean to let your autonomous agent be off clicking around the web with all of your passwords and access to all your stuff, and what you're going to need to trust that system. The safety problem is, it's not separable from the development of the technology anymore, and also it is going to be just a limiter on how we can deploy these systems, even though it's not about AI safety in the traditional sense that many researchers who say they work on it might. This is systems, this is safety systems engineering or something like that. I'm directionally pretty happy so far with the trajectory the field has been on. It's way better, I think, than the median case and what I could have imagined. But as these systems start to get really powerful, the safety issues become quite nuanced and challenging.
Yeah, and the word regulation comes up a lot, and I just don't know, is regulation the right way to look at it, or is it governance?
I think like regulation is an element of good policy, and what we need is like good policy and like an industry that does reasonable things, regulators that do reasonable things, people that use these systems in reasonable ways. There will clearly need to be regulation, but there will need to be like a very broad set of other things too.
If you could do that, maybe that's a Nobel Peace Prize.
Maybe.
So,
yeah, maybe the AI can figure that out.
could be. But you know, the issue of trust is a huge one, and it's hard to sort of do any of that unless you first get trust, whether it's you, Sam Altman, OpenAI, or you know, how do you think about generating trust, especially as things scale?
One of the things that we've been really pleased about is that so AI has much less of a problem than it used to, but still a significant one with hallucinations and general inaccuracies. And when we first released the model, we were like, this is like pretty dangerous. It says these like clearly crazy things sometimes. It means users are not going to trust it at all, or they're going to trust it too much. And that's its own set of problems. And to our pleasant surprise, like users got a feel for the technology incredibly quickly, understood its limitations, when to use it, when not to use it, when to verify, when they could just like kind of trust it pretty blindly. And I think a reminder here, or like this is an example of the fact that humans are good at figuring out how to use tools.
Yeah. I want to come back a little bit to just how, and this does relate to trust because it's you know, what's in the machine, what's in the black box. So these advances, whether it's strawberry or 1.0, however we call it, or 2.0 or 3.0, they're on the path to do more with less data. And a thing that's missing, though, is that there are low context languages. Like my family's Hungarian, so not a lot of Hungarian content out there. Kurdish, you know, which are not really incorporated. And then there are hundreds of years of literature that are really not included in these language models. So is that important? Not important? How do you deal?
Yeah,
we
want to get it all in there.
Yeah.
We have a lot of partnerships with people to help us get low resource language or data that is not yet digitized into these models. And we're enthusiastic to do a lot more. But we'd love to throw in kind of as much as people want in there.
Yeah. Does that also sort of feed into the notion of having something that's interpretable around safety, or is that not part of the?
I think that's separate from the interpretability angle, but that is also very important to us. And I think the strawberry paradigm and having these chains of thoughts that we can look at is a new and exciting vector of interpretability work.
I want to turn the microphone over to some students, but before we do, I have four. You took one of my speed round questions already. So the first one is around Amara's law, you know, where we tend to overestimate the effect of a technology in the short term and underestimate it in the long term. What are we underestimating in the long term now?
That this really is just going to be everywhere and part of everything. You all are the last generation that will grow up without expecting every product and service you use to be really smart, like smarter than you in some sort of cognitive ability sense. And what that's going to do to how we use computers, how we interact with the world around us, and the degree to which that is just going to like seep everywhere and be like unbelievably helpful to everything we do. I think we still haven't internalized that.
So I did read all close to 500 questions that folks submitted. So these are from, and I don't know that these individuals will get to ask these questions. So what's your favorite cheese?
Like burrata and really good summer tomatoes.
Awesome. If retro, which is an aging company, or anti-aging or aging reversal company, technology works, who should play you in your biopic?
Oof. I hope there never is one.
Oh, come.
Michael Cera. I think similar energy.
This next one's easier. iOS or Android?
iOS.
Right, haven't been done. So we have a microphone going around to, I think, about a dozen students who are just kind of plucked, but we did, in a non-random way, and this is important, it's really important to me, as a signal or an indication of who you are. There were a lot of people who signed up for tickets who didn't get a ticket. One of the students sent you an email and said, I have a question. And you said, it's a good question. And emailed me and said, can you get Maria Cecilia a seat? And so I think it's a good question. So I think I'd love for Maria Cecilia to be the first one to ask a question. But why it's important to me, and why I think it should be important to all of you, is that kind of accessibility and curiosity is just remarkable. You have a pretty busy day job. So,
Thank you.
I know, Maria, if you're out there.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for coming here and helping me get here as well. I wanted to ask you, because I was listening to a podcast that discussed a bit about the global state of energy. And for context, I suppose for everyone as well, the United States is right now about a terawatt of energy production, which costs maybe 17 to 25 cents per kilowatt hour. And then I think by 2050, we're supposed to increase that to 2 terawatts. Probably similar pricing. And then I think China's beat us at, as well as France and a lot of other countries are producing energy at a lot more efficient of a rate. And so I'd like to hear your thoughts on how that could affect businesses, both in their own unit economics as well as on the broader security scale. And then how much of that energy differential do you think can be made up for by hardware improvements versus software optimized to fit that hardware?
I mean, like energy, I think, is one of the 2 fundamental commodities of the future, intelligence being the other. And we should have way, way more of it than we do, and we should make the price as low as we can get it. I think fusion will work and be the cheapest form of energy on Earth. If it doesn't work, I still think solar plus storage can be quite cheap, and we can have a lot of that. It's very dangerous, I think, for our country not to invest very heavily in cheap, clean, safe, reliable energy. If you study sort of the history of energy, you see these just massive improvements to quality of life associated with the cost of energy coming down, and we kind of haven't had as much progress there as I would hope. I think especially in a world of AI and to run the AI itself and do all the new things that it comes up with that we want to do, we're just going to need huge amounts of it. And I think the US, if the US committed to a strategy of we are going to lead the world in abundant intelligence and abundant energy, that would be a wonderful thing to do. And I think what can happen over the next decade there is quite remarkable, and this is an area that governments can play a huge leadership role. There's a lot that's got to happen, like the grid is atrocious, the permitting process in the US is like quite difficult. As you mentioned, other places can build energy much faster, but we should do a lot of it.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Eric from School of Information. I'm a PhD student studying healthcare and AI. So my question is, what was your most challenging moment as a CEO in OpenAI, and how did you navigate through that?
I probably won't give the answer you expect. The most challenging moment was, it wasn't like a single moment in time, but the most challenging moment was when we just didn't know what to do next. Before we had launched a product, we were doing research. You know, it was very unclear what to work on. We were trying to like pick these random things. We were just like stumbling in the forest, and people would get, this is very early on, people would get demotivated, people would like fight over very silly things, and it was just like, what are we doing here? Like maybe we were too optimistic. Crises you can deal with. There will be lots of those, and you know, like it's often amazing to me when I get home at the end of a day, like how much stuff went wrong in any one day. But when you don't have when nothing's working, when you don't have momentum, when you don't have a clear direction, and people are just kind of like off, drifting and getting demotivated, and you kind of like got to get people feeling like reasonably optimistic and doing something. That was challenging at the very beginning. And then kind of by, relatively early on, but not in the first couple of years when we kind of knew what to do, that was better. But that was a surprisingly hard thing to get through.
Good evening, my name is Harshita. I'm a student at the School of Information. So my question is, what impact do you think AI will have on the education system over the next 2 decades, especially in terms of personalized learning and access to education?
Look, this is one of the handful of areas that I'm most excited about. I would say number one thing I'm excited about is what AI will do for scientific progress. But number two, tied for number two at least, is what I think this can do for education. We hear amazing stories all the time from students and from teachers who use this to sort of really change the way that they learn already. And as the models get better and as people build services on top of this, I think it is already changing how people learn and also how people access and use information. And my hope is that anybody starting school now gets a better education than the best education anyone got graduating today. I really think it is that level of a transformation. And it's amazing to watch what people are already doing with it.
Hi, Sam. My name is Matt, and I'm a computer science student in the College of Engineering. And I'm wondering what has been OpenAI's risk management techniques that you've used since the huge popularity of your products.
A huge part of it has been just getting really good at monitoring. We do all sorts of pre-launch testing, which we kind of knew we would do in red teaming and safety systems that we build. But we have a lot of people using the product all around the world for a lot of things. And building a really great monitoring system was something that I think I underestimated the need for at the time of launch. And now we got much better at, and that's been very, very helpful. So rigorous pre-launch testing and then ongoing careful monitoring. One of the strange things about OpenAI is we had to build a whole company in a year, a big company in a year. The day before ChatGPT launched, we were this little research lab. And then a year later, we were one of the larger technology companies. And that was a very painful experience to go through. But you do learn how quickly it's possible to build up new functions like this. And that was a kind of inspiring thing to see the team do.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Achuth, and I'm a master's student studying computer vision. My question for you today is, how do you deal with AI hallucinations, especially in critical contexts, such as a medical setting or a legal setting? And is there a particular stage in the LLM pipeline that you're focusing your research on to address these issues?
First of all, I point out to how much better the problem has gotten over the last couple of years. When we launched, 2022 is not that long ago in the calendar, but it's a very long time ago in terms of AI progress. Back in 2022, GPT-3 was the best model in the world, and it was terrible and really expensive, really slow, hallucinated a lot. The problem has already gotten dramatically better, and then today with the launch of O1, hallucinations are still a problem, but it is not something that is in the way of people getting a tremendous amount of value out of it for most use cases. There are still some areas where you would definitely still be quite foolish to rely on AI because of the hallucination problem, but it'll keep getting better. And also, I think, as we talked about earlier, people have really good taste and they understand the limitations of tools and when to use it and when not to use it. So there's definitely a lot we'll do to improve this in the coming months and years, but I think already it is no longer like one of the top issues we hear about.
Thank you.
Hi, Sam. My name is Catherine Ling. I'm an MBA student at Ross School of Business. So my question would be, as an MBA student aiming to become a product manager in AI space, what kind of key skills or experience should I focus on developing to effectively bridge between advanced AI technologies and market needs? Thank you.
I think for anything like that, the answer is just to go do it. Like, I am a big believer that if you want to like get good at something, you get good at it by just doing the thing. I think this is like a surprisingly underrated piece of life advice. You know, if you're like trying to do thing X, you go build up skills like A, B, and C so that like you think they'll apply to X later. But you should have just been like working on X as quickly as you could and like learning that. And that's certainly what I would say for this.
Thank you.
Hello, nice to meet you. My name is Julia Kasab. I'm a senior at the School of Information here at Michigan. So my question for you today is, do you believe that current students of computer and information science should feel insecure about the profession that they're entering, in the sense that their current skill set that they've worked very hard for might become obsolete in the future?
Sort of, but not really. Like, if you think that the job of a programmer in 5 years is going to look at a kind of minute-to-minute level, similar to what a programmer does today, then like obviously you're in for a bad time. But if you think that the world is going to continue to have near limitless demand for software, and that as part of that, there will be a very important role to figure out what it should be and how to like work with a much higher level of programming than we use today, then I think there'll be a ton of demand for that kind of a job. But it will be really different. I remember hearing stories about like how when more advanced programming languages came out, all of the like OG programmers at the time would be like, oh, there's going to be no jobs left because this new thing is just too easy and everybody's going to be doing it. It didn't quite happen. And I don't think it'll quite happen this time either, but what a programmer is capable of and the expectations of a programmer will be extremely different, and the job will look very different than what it means to write code today.
I think we have time for 2 more questions, and then I know Dean Tolley would like to just have some closing remarks.
Can I say one more thing about that?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
The skills that I think will matter and are surprisingly learnable are like the things in the cluster of like resilience and adaptability and learning quickly. And if you can do that, and that's a place where young people have a natural advantage, it seems to me, you'll be in great shape, and if not, it'll sort of be a bumpy ride. But I think you can get better at those by practice.
Hi, I'm Amy. I'm a computer science student in the College of Engineering, and I was wondering, since the OpenAI models have been trained on like a massive amounts of data from the internet and also like other sources, how do you plan on obtaining training data when you've exhausted every possible source?
People learn a huge amount with a relatively small amount of training data. So I have no doubt we'll find way more data efficient methods. And I used to worry about this a lot, and now I don't. Like I think we're going to get across the data event horizon here, no problem. Algorithmic gains.
This is our last question.
Hello, my name is Jack May, and I am an MBA student here at Michigan Ross. And my question is, what ethical or regulatory dilemmas most trouble you personally in terms of AI? And which issues that seem to concern the media or general public do you believe are misconceptions?
The issue that concerns me the most is just like, I believe that society can adapt to almost any amount of change given a reasonable amount of time. But the tools that we and others are putting out into the world, if things keep going like we think they're going to, will require society to adapt at a rate that is more challenging. And it's the ethical implications of the rate of change that we're about to launch through that trouble me the most. And it's very unclear what to do about that. Well, I think there are things that could be done for it, but that society will have the will to get done and also would be good, that's very unclear. So it's this, if we kind of go through a rewrite of so much of our society this quickly, what can we do, what shouldn't we do to help people adapt and like thrive through that? Things that the media obsesses about too much, I think the coverage of AI by the media is like fairly atrocious. But I would love to stop seeing the Terminator robots in the news articles. Many other things too.
Well, Sam, it really just means a lot that you're here today. I know that the group here appreciates it quite a bit. And I know Dean Tolley has some closing remarks, but really thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you all for coming.
Wow, that was great. That was a great session. Although I have to say, I'm not sure if I were more impressed by the answers or the questions from our phenomenal students. I have to say that, all right? So I want to thank Dan Fader for his role in making this event possible. Let's give him a hand. Of course, to our guest, Sam Altman, for his insights and for taking his valuable time to come visit us here at Michigan. You've given us so much to think about. I also want to give a special thanks to all the team members who worked behind the scenes to make this event happen. It was really a special event for all of us, and I want to thank you, students, for joining us today and being so engaged in this discussion. Have a good evening and go blue.